On Christmas Day, my mother-in-law dragged my suckling baby from my breast and locked me up in the garage. I revealed my gift for her that made her fall to her knees. I was nursing my baby when my mother-in-law tore her from my arms. One moment my daughter was warm against my chest, suckling softly, and the next her tiny body was ripped away as I screamed. It was Christmas morning. Snow pressed against the windows. My milk-soaked sweater was still open when Eleanor shouted that I was tainting the child. My knees hit the tile as I reached for my baby, but my husband stood frozen behind his mother. Eleanor dragged me by the wrist down the hallway, her grip sharp and sure, like she had practiced it. The garage door flew open, cold air biting my skin, and she shoved me inside. The door slammed. The lock clicked. I beat on the metal with both fists, my body shaking, my breasts aching, my heart breaking. From the other side, my baby cried. If this already made your chest tighten, hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. The garage smelled like oil and rust. My breath came out in white clouds as I pressed my ear to the door. My baby's cries cut through me like glass. Each sound was sharp, desperate, and hungry. I screamed her name until my throat burned, until my voice cracked and fell apart. I kicked the door, but pain shot through my bare feet. My hands shook so badly, I could not curl my fingers. I begged. I promised. I sobbed. No one answered. I could hear Eleanor moving inside, calm steps, slow and steady. My milk leaked down my stomach, soaking my jeans, a cruel reminder of what had been taken. I wrapped my arms around myself and rocked, trying to stay warm, trying not to imagine my baby alone and screaming. Time stretched into something heavy and thick. Every second felt like a punishment. I whispered to myself that I would remember this moment forever, even if they tried to make me forget. Laughter floated through the door. Not nervous laughter. Not awkward laughter. Easy laughter. I heard my husband's voice, soft and familiar, saying I was being overdramatic. Eleanor answered him with a low chuckle, telling him I needed to learn my place. My heart dropped into my stomach. I had known her cruelty, but his silence cut deeper than the cold. I pressed my forehead to the metal and listened as they talked about breakfast, about guests arriving, about how I always made scenes. My baby cried again, louder this time, and I screamed her name until my throat felt torn. My husband said, "She'll calm down once she's alone." Alone. The word echoed inside my skull. I realized then that this was not chaos. This was planned. Eleanor had waited for Christmas. She had waited for witnesses. And my husband had chosen his mother without saying it out loud. Plates clinked. Glasses tapped together. A Christmas dinner happened without me. I could smell food through the door, warm and rich, and my stomach twisted painfully. Eleanor made a toast. I could hear it clearly, her voice proud, thanking the family for supporting tradition and order. Someone laughed. Someone else said amen. I slid down the wall and sat on the cold concrete floor, my legs numb, my arms wrapped around my aching chest. My baby's cries came and went, growing hoarse, then weak. Each pause terrified me more than the sound. I counted my breaths. I counted the seconds. I promised myself I would not pass out. I would not let them break me in silence. Outside, snow fell gently, like the world was still kind. Inside the house, they celebrated while I shook in the dark. The cold pulled me backward into memory. Last Christmas, Eleanor had hugged me tightly and called me daughter. She had praised my cooking and held my hands when she prayed. I remembered how she corrected me gently back then, how she insisted on holding the baby to help. I had mistaken control for care. I had smiled when she rearranged my kitchen, when she spoke for me, when she told people I was sensitive. I thought she loved me. I wanted peace more than truth. Now, sitting on the garage floor, I saw those moments clearly. Each smile had been a test. Each favor had been a leash. I had failed by trusting her. The cold crept deeper into my bones, but the clarity burned hot. I whispered to myself that love should never feel like fear. I promised that if I got out, I would never ignore that truth again. Eleanor hated me because I took her son. She never said it directly, but it lived in her eyes. She called me too old to be a new mother, whispered that my body was weak, my mind fragile. She told friends I was lucky her son chose me. When the baby was born, her tone changed. She spoke of bloodlines and legacy. She corrected how I held my child. She watched me like I was a risk. I remembered her once saying, "A baby needs stability, not emotion." At the time, I nodded. Now, trapped in the garage, I understood. This was not about love or concern.
It was about ownership.
Eleanor believed my baby belonged to her, and my husband had been raised to agree. The thought settled in me like stone. I stopped crying then. Anger replaced the fear, slow and steady, keeping me awake. A soft knock came at the door. I jumped, heart racing. A whisper followed. "Mrs. Julianne." It was Rosa, the housekeeper. The door cracked open just enough for a folded blanket to slide through. Warmth flooded my hands as I pulled it around my shoulders. "She's done this before," Rosa whispered quickly. "Not like this, but she breaks women. Makes them look unstable. You must be careful." Before I could speak, the door shut again. I pressed the blanket to my face and breathed in detergent and kindness. Someone had seen this before. Someone believed me. The knowledge was a lifeline. I wiped my tears and stood, my legs shaking. I looked around the garage and noticed a loose panel near the back wall. Hope flickered, small but stubborn. My fingers burned, leaving streaks of red on the wood as I pried at the loose panel. A nail caught my skin, tearing it open, but I did not stop.
Pain grounded me.
It reminded me I was still here, still alive, still a mother. The panel shifted slightly, enough to reveal a narrow gap and a breath of air. I whispered my baby's name through it, my voice breaking. I did not know if she could hear me, but I needed her to know I was fighting. My hands shook as I wrapped my bleeding finger in the corner of my shirt. I promised myself I would remember every sound, every word, every face. I would not let them rewrite this moment. I would not let them call me unstable. I pressed my palm to my chest and swore I would survive this, even if they never expected me to. The crying stopped. The silence was worse. My heart pounded so hard I thought I would vomit. I screamed until my voice vanished into a rasp. I banged on the door with my fists, my shoulders, my head. Nothing. No footsteps. No answers. My mind filled with horrible images, and I fought them with every ounce of strength I had left. I sank to the floor again, gasping, rocking, praying. The garage light flickered once, then stayed steady. I stared at it, forcing myself to breathe slowly. I told myself silence did not mean harm. I told myself to hold on. Somewhere inside, a quiet decision formed. If my baby lived, I would never let anyone take her again. Not Eleanor. Not my husband. Not fear. That promise kept me breathing until dawn. The door opened with a loud click. Morning light spilled into the garage, harsh and cold. My husband stood there, arms crossed, eyes empty. He looked at me like I was a problem to solve, not a wife. "Mother was right," he said flatly. "You're not stable." His words landed heavier than any blow. I tried to speak, but my throat burned. He stepped aside and told me to clean myself up and rest. The baby would stay with Eleanor for now. I walked past him on shaking legs, every step carving something new into me. I looked back once at the garage. It had been a prison, but it had also been a beginning. In that darkness, something inside me had changed. I was done being quiet. They said it calmly, like it was reasonable. Eleanor told me I needed rest. My husband said space would help me reset. The baby stayed with her. I was guided to the guest room like a visitor who had overstayed her welcome. My phone was gone. My bag was gone. The door did not lock, but I knew better than to test it. I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to my baby cry somewhere far away, then stop. Eleanor brought me soup later and spoke softly, like she was caring, like she hadn't locked me in a garage hours earlier. She told me good mothers knew when to step back. I nodded because fighting felt dangerous. Inside, I began counting. Every word, every look, every lie. If they wanted me quiet, I would be quiet. But I would also be watching. I cried silently that night, pressing my face into the pillow so no one would hear. My body still ached for my baby. My arms felt empty. My heart felt bruised. I replayed the morning again and again, trying to understand how love had turned into this. In the morning, I found a notebook in the drawer. I began to write.
Dates. Words.
Actions. I wrote how Eleanor spoke for me, how my husband avoided my eyes, how they told others I was fragile. Writing made me feel steady. It reminded me I was real. Rosa passed by and squeezed my hand when no one was looking. Be smart, she whispered. She wants you to react. I nodded. I stopped crying where anyone could see. I smiled when expected. Inside, I was building something quiet and strong. That evening, Rosa slipped something into my hand. My phone. She forgot to check the laundry, Rosa whispered. My hands shook as I hid it under the blanket. When I turned it on, messages flooded in. Missed calls from my friend Lydia. Notifications I never saw. And then I found a hidden chat. Messages between my husband and Eleanor. My breath caught as I scrolled. They talked about documentation. About showing patterns. About making sure I looked unstable if I pushed back. My vision blurred, but I kept reading. They planned to keep the baby safe from me. I felt sick. This was not fear. This was strategy. I backed everything up, hands steady now. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't broken. I was being set up. Voice notes sat in the chat like loaded weapons. I pressed play. Eleanor's voice filled the room, cold and clear. She talked about forging my name on medical forms, about telling doctors I had mood swings, about how postpartum records would help them. My knees buckled, and I sat hard on the bed. This was bigger than cruelty. This was a plan. My husband agreed with her in his quiet way, asking questions, suggesting timing. I recorded the audio with my phone, saving copies everywhere I could. My hands stopped shaking. Fear was turning into focus. I knew then that survival was not enough. I needed proof. I needed patience. And I needed my baby back. I hid my phone in the nursery the next day, propped behind a stack of folded blankets. I pretended to nap while Eleanor and my husband talked. They did not whisper. They never thought I was capable of listening. Eleanor bragged about finally taking control. She laughed about the garage like it was a lesson taught. My husband nodded, saying it was for the best. The camera caught everything. Their faces. Their voices. Their confidence. That night, Eleanor raised a glass at dinner and said families needed strong matriarchs. I watched from the doorway, quiet and small, while the phone recorded. If you want to see how lies unravel, hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. I studied my husband closely after that. I saw his weakness clearly. He wasn't cruel like his mother.
He was weak.
He feared her anger more than he loved me. He let her decide what was true. He let her rewrite our life. When I spoke calmly, he looked confused. When I cried, he looked annoyed. He needed approval, not truth. That knowledge hurt, but it freed me. I stopped trying to convince him. I focused on leaving. Lydia came by with baby clothes and hugs. I whispered everything to her in the kitchen while Eleanor napped. Lydia's eyes hardened. She promised to help. We spoke in codes. We planned carefully. One mistake would cost me my child. I tried once to reason with my husband. I told him I was scared. Eleanor stormed in before he could answer. She slapped me hard across the face, calling me ungrateful. My ears rang, but I didn't react. The phone in my pocket recorded it all. Eleanor screamed about sacrifice and loyalty. My husband said nothing. I nodded. I apologized. I agreed to pack and rest at my mother's. They watched me closely as I folded clothes. What they didn't see was me uploading every file to the cloud. Every message. Every recording. Every bruise. I moved slowly, obediently, while my escape took shape. That night, I sat alone in the nursery. I touched the crib rail and breathed in baby powder. I whispered promises into the quiet room. Tomorrow would change everything. I wrapped the evidence in pretty paper and placed it in a box. Screenshots printed neatly. USB drives labeled carefully. I made it beautiful. Eleanor loved appearances. I would use that. I slept for 1 hour. Fear hummed under my skin, but hope kept me steady. I was done begging. I was done shrinking. Family filled the house the next afternoon. Laughter.
Perfume.
Praise for Eleanor. She played the role perfectly. I smiled and held the box. When it was time for gifts, I handed it to her. For everything you've done, I said softly. She beamed and opened it. The TV flickered on. Her voice filled the room. Her laughter. Her cruelty. Gasps erupted. My husband turned pale. Eleanor fell to her knees, begging me to stop. I walked past them and lifted my baby from her arms. You'll never touch my child again, I said. The room was silent. After that, everything moved fast. My husband begged. I didn't answer. A lawyer listened carefully and nodded. Charges were filed. Boards removed Eleanor quietly. Friends vanished. 1 year later, I stood in my small home, decorating a modest tree with my baby. Peace filled the room. A letter arrived from Eleanor. I mailed it back unopened. This is my gift to you, I wrote. Silence. She had locked me in a garage once. But in that darkness, I found the key to my freedom. The days after the gathering felt unreal, like I was walking through fog. My husband slept on the couch, afraid to speak. Eleanor stayed locked in her room, making phone calls that went unanswered. I focused on my baby. Every feeding felt like reclaiming something stolen. Lydia stayed close, helping me document everything properly. She reminded me to eat, to rest, to breathe. I kept writing in my journal, adding new entries about the begging, the blaming, the sudden fear in their eyes. They tried to act like nothing had happened, like the truth could be stuffed back into a box. But the house felt different.
Smaller.
I could feel the walls closing in on Eleanor now. For the first time, she avoided me. That shift told me everything. Power had moved and she knew it. A lawyer met me quietly the next morning. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said my evidence was strong. Forged medical records were serious. Locking me in the garage counted as abuse. Keeping my baby from me without cause was worse. I felt dizzy hearing it said out loud. I wasn't weak. I wasn't unstable. I was wronged. Papers were filed. Protective steps were taken. My husband tried to argue, but his voice carried no weight anymore. He had chosen silence when it mattered. Now silence was all he had. I packed slowly, calmly, while Eleanor watched from the hallway. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her fear spoke for her. News travels fast in small circles. Eleanor's friends stopped calling. Committees asked her to step down quietly. Invitations disappeared. She tried to blame me, then doctors, then stress. No one listened. My husband lost a promotion he had bragged about for months. People asked questions he couldn't answer. At night, I held my baby and felt something new growing inside me. Not rage.
Strength.
I was not loud. I was not dramatic. I was steady. That scared them more than shouting ever could. Lydia helped me move essentials into her car while Eleanor pretended not to see. I left without a fight. I had already won something more important than space. I had truth. The first night away, I slept on a mattress on the floor. It was the best sleep I had in months. No footsteps. No whispers. No watching eyes. I woke up smiling at my baby's face. I thought about the woman I had been before Christmas.
Quiet.
Careful. Always smoothing things over.
She had survived.
But she wasn't coming back. I met my lawyer again and signed more papers. The process would be long, she warned. I nodded. I was no longer afraid of time. Eleanor tried once to call. I didn't answer. That silence felt like armor. The real reckoning was coming. And this time, I would not be locked out of my own life. The court date arrived like a storm I had been preparing for. Eleanor walked in wearing soft colors, playing fragile. My husband sat beside her, eyes down. When the recordings played, the room changed. Her voice, sharp and proud, filled the space. Her laughter, her plans, her words about breaking me. She shook her head, whispering excuses, but it was too late. Evidence does not care about tears. I held my baby close and watched the judge's face harden. For the first time, Eleanor was not in control of the room. If you've stayed this far, hit subscribe for more true revenge stories. You won't want to miss how truth finishes its work. The judge's voice was calm, but the words landed hard. Eleanor was ordered to stay away from me and my baby. The forged medical papers were sent for investigation. The garage incident was called unlawful confinement. Hearing it named made my hands shake. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was abused. My husband stared at the floor as the judge spoke to him about failure to protect his wife. His shoulders sagged, but I felt no comfort in that. When the session ended, Eleanor tried to look strong, but her eyes darted around the room. She was no longer in control. Outside the courtroom, my lawyer squeezed my arm and told me I had done everything right. I held my baby closer, breathing her in. Justice didn't roar. It arrived quietly, like a door locking behind someone who could no longer follow me. The weeks after the hearing were heavy, but steady. I moved into a small rental with creaky floors and too little storage, but it was mine.
No one watched me.
No one corrected me. I fed my baby when she cried and slept when I could. Eleanor tried to send messages through relatives, asking to talk like adults. I blocked them all. My husband came once, standing on the porch with his hands shaking. He said he was confused, that his mother had always led him. I told him that was exactly the problem. I didn't raise my voice.
I didn't cry.
I closed the door gently. That night, I slept deeply for the first time since Christmas. Freedom didn't feel loud or proud. It felt safe. And that was enough. Word spread faster than I expected. Eleanor stepped down from her charity board for personal reasons.
Her friends stopped visiting.
People who once praised her now avoided her eyes. I never celebrated it out loud, but I noticed. Actions have echoes. My husband's job placed him on leave while family matters were reviewed. He called it unfair. I called it consequences. Rosa visited one afternoon, bringing soup and holding my baby with tears in her eyes. She told me other women had never made it out. They had been labeled unstable and pushed aside. Hearing that made my chest ache, but it also made me stand taller. I had not just saved myself. I had stopped a pattern. That truth stayed with me when nights felt lonely. I wasn't broken. I was brave. The divorce paperwork arrived in a thick envelope. I read every page slowly. My lawyer explained each line, making sure I understood my rights. I signed without shaking. My husband asked for counseling. I declined. Love cannot grow where trust has died. He cried quietly, but I felt nothing move inside me. I wasn't cruel. I was done. When it was final, I walked outside with my baby strapped to my chest and breathed in cold air. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a woman who had chosen herself. That choice had cost me comfort, history, and illusion. It had given me peace. I would choose it again. Eleanor sent a letter next. Thick paper. Careful handwriting. I didn't open it. I recognized manipulation when I saw it. I wrote return to sender and dropped it in the mailbox. That was my answer. I stopped explaining myself to people who didn't listen. I stopped softening my words. My therapist told me anger could be healthy if it led to boundaries. I smiled at that. My anger had carried me out of a locked garage, through lies, and into truth. It had not destroyed me. It had protected me. I no longer feared being alone. I feared going back to silence more. Spring arrived slowly, like it was unsure if I trusted it yet. I watched sunlight move across the floor of my small living room while my baby slept beside me. The silence felt strange at first. No commands. No sharp footsteps. No one watching my every move. I learned how to breathe again. Some nights, memories crept in. The cold garage. The locked door. Eleanor's voice.
When they came, I didn't fight them. I reminded myself I was safe now. I wrote letters I never sent. I spoke truths no one could twist anymore. Strength wasn't loud. It showed up in small choices. Locking my door. Saying no. Trusting my body and my mind again. I was no longer asking permission to exist. The woman who survived Christmas was not the woman who stood here now. She had grown roots in hard ground. And she was not going anywhere. Eleanor faded from my life the way noise fades after a storm. I still heard about her through others. She stopped attending events. She avoided public places. People who once praised or whispered instead. I didn't enjoy her fall, but I didn't stop it either. Consequences don't ask for approval. My ex-husband sent long messages filled with regret and confusion. He said he didn't know how things went so wrong. I knew. He had chosen comfort over courage every time. I read his words once, then deleted them. I was done carrying his weakness. Therapy helped me understand something important. I didn't need forgiveness to heal. I needed truth. And I had it. Every lie had been exposed. Every threat had lost its power. I was no longer surviving. I was living on my own terms. One afternoon, a woman at my support group asked how I escaped without losing myself. Her voice shook the way mine once did. I told her the truth. I didn't escape by being quiet. I escaped by paying attention. I documented everything. I trusted my instincts when others told me I was wrong. I stayed calm when they expected me to break. Strength isn't shouting. It's standing still when someone tries to move you. The group listened closely. I saw recognition in their eyes. Pain shared becomes lighter. Silence keeps it heavy. When I left that meeting, I felt taller. Not proud. Grounded. My story no longer lived inside me like a wound. It stood beside me like armor. Eleanor had tried to erase me. Instead, she gave me a voice I would never lose again. Christmas returned, quiet and gentle this time. I placed a small tree near the window and let my baby help hang soft ornaments. There was no fear in my chest.
No tightness. Just peace. I cooked simple food. I laughed without checking who was listening. The past no longer owned the holiday. I did. That night, I sat on the floor with my child asleep in my arms and thought about the woman locked in the garage a year ago. She had been terrified, shaking, and unheard. I wished I could tell her what I knew now. That she would win. That truth would walk beside her. That she would build a life no one could steal. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt complete. Eleanor believed darkness would destroy me. She believed fear would make me small. She was wrong. The garage didn't break me. It sharpened me. In that cold silence, I learned who I was without permission, without approval, without fear. I learned that love never locks doors, that control is not care, and that strength does not beg.
It stands.
I walked away with my child, my truth, and my future intact. I didn't need revenge screamed from rooftops. I lived it quietly.
Safely.
Fully. She lost control. I gained freedom. That was the balance restored. She locked me away once. But in that darkness, I found the key. And I never gave it back. The final court papers arrived on a quiet morning. I sat at my small kitchen table while my baby played on the floor, stacking blocks and laughing. I read every page slowly, making sure nothing could be twisted later. Eleanor's name appeared again and again, now tied to warnings, restrictions, and legal consequences. Seeing it there felt unreal. For years, she had controlled rooms with her voice alone. Now the law had spoken for me. I signed carefully, my hands steady. When it was done, I felt lighter, like I had been carrying a heavy coat I didn't know how to remove. I stepped outside and let the cold air fill my lungs. I wasn't angry. I wasn't afraid. I was finished. Eleanor could no longer reach me, speak for me, or touch my child. That chapter of my life was closed, sealed, and filed away. People asked if I missed my old life. The big house. The family gatherings. The comfort. I thought about it honestly. I missed who I thought they were, not who they truly became. My new life was smaller, but it fit me. I chose my own routines. I chose silence when I wanted it and laughter when it came naturally. I trusted myself again. That trust was everything they tried to steal. My baby grew stronger each day, safe in my arms, unaware of the battle fought for her. I watched her sleep and knew I had done the right thing. No one would ever lock me away again. No one would ever call cruelty love in my presence. I had crossed something I could never return from, and I was grateful. One afternoon, I found the old blanket Rosa had slipped under the garage door. I held it and cried softly, not from pain, but from release. I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. It wasn't a reminder of weakness. It was proof I survived. I sent Rosa a letter, thanking her for seeing me when others chose blindness. She replied with a simple note that said, "You saved yourself." She was right. Help matters, but courage finishes the job. Eleanor's name no longer caused my chest to tighten. It was just a name now. Power fades when it's no longer feared. I smiled more easily. I stood straighter. I no longer explained myself to anyone. My life was not a debate. It was mine. On Christmas morning, 1 year later, I woke before dawn and held my baby by the window. Snow fell quietly, just like before, but everything felt different. There was no dread. No memory chasing me. I made cocoa and turned on soft music. We opened simple gifts. We laughed. That was it. No drama. No audience. Peace was the greatest gift I had ever received. I thought about Eleanor, not with anger, but distance. Some people lose everything because they try to own what was never theirs. I had lost much too, but I had gained myself. That trade was worth it. I kissed my baby's head and whispered a promise. No one would ever take her from me again. She locked me in a garage once, believing fear would erase me. She believed silence would bend me. She believed control was love. She was wrong about all of it. In that darkness, I found something she could never touch. My voice. My strength. My truth. I didn't win by shouting or destroying. I won by standing, documenting, and walking away with my child and my dignity intact. My revenge was not cruelty. It was freedom. It was peace. It was a life no one else controlled. I no longer carry the past like a wound. I carry it like proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I chose myself. And proof that even in the darkest places, a woman can find the key and unlock her future. If this story stayed with you, like the video, subscribe for more powerful revenge stories, and tell me in the comments what part hit you the hardest.